You're listening to the Options Insider Radio Network, the home of the Options Podcast. For more quality options programs, visit theoptionsinsider.com or search for Options Insider Radio Network in your podcast provider of choice. Listeners can also access all of our programming through our mobile app available in the iTunes and Google Play stores. Select programs are also available via live stream at mixlr.com/options-insider. That's mixlr.com/options-insider. Don't forget to follow along with your favorite programs and submit your own questions for the hosts at twitter.com/options, stocktwits.com/options, facebook.com/theoptionsinsider, or via questions at theoptionsinsider.com. And now, it's time for the show that breaks down the options market from unusual activity alerts to market analysis, strategy overviews, listener questions, and much more. If it involves puts and calls, then our all-star panel will break it down. It's time to hit the Option Block with your host, Mark Longo from the Options Insider Media Group, and co-hosts, Uncle Mike TOSAW from St. Charles Wealth Management, along with Mark the Greasy Meatball Sebastian and Andrew the Rock Lobster Giovinazzi from OptionPit.com. And now, get ready to hit the Option Block.
All right, everybody. That music means it is time to commence yet another broadcast week here on the much beloved, much anticipated Options Insider Radio Network. How do we do that? With your favorite bi-weekly options extravaganza known around the globe as the Option Block. My name, of course, Mark Longo from theoptionsinsider.com, as well as, of course, from the network upon which all of you are binging. Remember, if you do like what you hear, do keep rating and reviewing wherever you get the show. If for some reason your platform doesn't allow that, then you can always leave a rating on our network app in any of the major app stores out there. That also works. A lot of people find our content that way as well. However you do get it, we do appreciate you spreading the word, because clearly there are more folks out there looking to get the good word here of the old OB and indeed the network. And we're happy to provide it for them. And of course, if they want to go above and beyond, if you want to go above and beyond, only one place to go, theoptionsinsider.com/pro. We're coming up on it. We're coming up on it, listeners. Almost time. One more day to get your name in the hat to win the fabulous Pro Trading Crate for the month of January. If you want to see what people have won in the past, just follow us on Twitter at Options. You can see people tweeting out about their many prizes that we put in. Each one is bespoke. No two trading crates are alike. So you're going to get something cool, and it's going to be a fun time. No small effort and or expense for us to put these together for you folks, but we like you. I'm looking at a mountain of stuff right now across the studio here, waiting to go out to somebody out there. How do you get your name entered into that drawing? Theoptionsinsider.com/pro is the only way. Just ask the Rock Lobster. He's bugging me. I want an umbrage box. He's jealous of you folks out there, but he cannot win. Only you can win, listeners. Theoptionsinsider.com/pro. Speaking of winning, today is the day, listeners, where we commence our new 80s wrestling contest for 2023. We debated on the last show what format it should take. I think we have it down now. We are going to go with 80s wrestling trivia. So let's do it. There we go. Can't do trivia without some trivia music. All right. Now, listeners, allow me to welcome on my compatriots, my partners in crime, Uncle Mike TOSAW from St. Charles Wealth Management, as well as the greasiest of meatballs, Mr. Mark Sebastian from OptionPit.com. Gentlemen, are you ready? Do you have your buzzers in hand?
Ready.
I'm ready.
All right, so I'm going to read out a trivia question from 80s Wrestling, and then I will leave you guys open. Whoever says buzz first will get the chance to answer. Maybe we'll have some bonus questions after that, too, for fun. But since it is 80s Wrestling time, listeners, and, of course, we just came off the heels this weekend. My favorite wrestling event of the calendar year since I was a little kid. Of course, the Royal Rumble, the greatest thing WWF/E has ever done. They had it this weekend. It was Royal Rumble weekend. So in honor of that, listeners out there, our question shall be Royal Rumble related. And my question to both of these participants is, who won the first ever Royal Rumble?
Buzz.
There we go. Okay, TOSAW, I heard you first, sir. Who won it? Go for it.
I'm going to go with Ric Flair.
Ah, interesting, but not correct. Mr. Meatball, you want to take a swing at it?
Yeah, I'm trying to remember if it was Hulk Hogan or Big John Studd. I know it was one of those two.
You love throwing out two answers for the question. You got to pick one.
He does that a lot, doesn't he?
He does, yes. You got to watch out for that, TOSAW.
I know one of them won one and one of them won two. I'm just trying to remember which is which. I'm going to go with Big John Studd.
He did win a Rumble. You are correct. I remember as a kid being mad. They put him in at number 30. I was like, what are you doing putting in this giant at number 30? That offended me as a child. But not the first one. The first Royal Rumble was won by none other than, Hacksaw Jim Duggan.
Oh.
The first ever Royal Rumble winner. A couple other bits of rando trivia for you. Well, let's do a couple bonus questions really quick. These would be like half a point because no one got a point out there today. What year was the first ever Royal Rumble?
Buzz.
All right, Mr. Uncle Mike, what do you got?
1989.
Close. 1988. January 24th. 1989 was the second year, and the year where they fixed some things. And I won't say what they fixed.
They did it now, to be fair. You could argue that the first Royal Rumble was actually the Battle Royale that they did at the Rosemont Horizon in WrestleMania.
But a Battle Royale, not quite the same thing as a Royal Rumble. We all know the Royal Rumble is more staggered. That's what makes it fun.
Yeah, you got the staggered starts in the Royal Rumble.
Mark, do you know what famous Chicago person was in the Battle Royale that took place during WrestleMania?
WrestleMania 2, yeah.
Wasn't it the Fridge?
Yes, it was the Fridge.
Along with Jimbo Covert.
Oh, there you go. There you go. I will throw out one other bonus question.
Jimbo Covert was even interviewed by Mean Gene afterwards because he was mad. He felt he got cheated.
He got robbed. I'll throw out one other bonus question, the chance for one of you guys to get half a point at least this week. How many participants were in the first ever Royal Rumble?
Buzz.
Go ahead.
30.
That's what you would think, but no. You're on 1989. 1989 is the year that they fixed it. They made it 30, the second one, 1989. The first ever one was only 20.
Ooh.
So, yes, Royal Rumble trivia. This stumping you guys. Stump Uncle Mike.
I was going to say 20 if you'd given me a chance.
Well, you didn't get a chance. You only one buzz in. That was it. He guessed it.
I buzzed in.
All right, so no points this week. A goose egg, listen. Not even any bonus points here for Royal Rumble trivia. Did you get any of those? It's a fun one. Royal Rumble, even if you don't like wrestling, I don't care if you think it's the stupidest thing in the world. But just the format alone of the Royal Rumble makes it fun. Check out one if you haven't done so yourself. As we keep on rolling, let's check out a little bit of the old trading block.
It's time to break down the latest topics, trades, and trends in the world of options. It's time for the Trading Block.
All right, everybody, welcome to the Trading Block. See, it's not all Royal Rumble trivia here on the show. Just a lot of it. Just on our Monday show. Our fun kickoff. A way to start the week, have a little bit of fun. Wake us up a little bit. In the case of these guys, I mean, it looks like they need a little bit more waking up here. Goose egg for the Royal Rumble. Did you get any of those, listeners? It's fun. The 21, actually, I had forgotten about that until I looked it up myself. That makes it kind of fun in and of itself. And good old Hacksaw. Everybody loves good old Hacksaw. King of the Ring, Royal Rumble. What didn't that man win out there? Let's go out to the markets. Not really winning today, at least if you look at them from an Uncle Mike perspective. S&P off about 0.9%. So they're coming forward a little bit today, off about 35, almost 36 handles. Of course, we are heading into Fed week, and that always tends to spook folks. So after the, shall we say, irrational exuberance the market showed on Friday, they started to peter off towards the end of the day on Friday as well. The sellers started coming in, so we mitigated some of the extreme highs on Friday. That seemed like that was boding for the trend today, and that's pretty much what we're getting. Sell-offs across the board. Dow off about 1/3%. NASDAQ closing in on 1.5%. So they are coming for the tech-heavy names today. That means our old friends of all friends starting to get a little bit frothier again, which is interesting in and of itself. We touched a 17 handle recently on VIXLAND. Listeners, that's intriguing in and of itself, and probably not long for this world. And coming into the start of the show today, that is exactly the case. VIX cash hitting a 20, when we kicked off the show today, at 20 even as we started operations. So that's up about 0.9 of a point from where it was on Thursday's show. VVIX getting a little frothier again, up to about an 84. That puts it up about 4 points, from where it was on Thursday's show. Our old friend VXX, the product time forgot, kind of unched from last week at about 1160, which is a little bit weird, but hey, VXX is a little bit weird these days. UVXY also unched from where it was on Thursday's show. That's also a little weird at about a 510. It was a 510 on our show last week as well. Our old friend SVIX, after hitting new highs last week, back down to about a 17.5. That puts it down about 1/10 of a point from where it was this time last week. And our old friend UVIX, freshly refreshed UVIX, getting a little bit frothier again at about a 1935 or so when we kicked off the show. That's up a whopping 1/10 of a point there as well. So still not a lot of juice there. That reverse split, just all kinds of ridiculous out there. If you're going to bother doing it, at least give us some meat on the bone. Back to a 20. You're going to be reverse splitting this thing again in like a month or two. So I don't know what they were thinking out there. We debated that a lot on Volatility Views. Check it out if you haven't done so yet, listeners. And then Vol Q at about a 24.80 when we kicked off the show, up about 1.3 points. Let's go around the horn. Since neither of you won, I guess I'll just pick. Let's go out to the Meatball first, because I'm curious, Mr. Meatball. We have now our official split in for UVIX. What are your thoughts on them only going up to about a paltry 20? And then B, what's catching your eye out there in the market, sir?
Well, I think it was about $7 or $8 when they initially announced it, or it was definitely in the sixes, and it just died further. They made the announcement, and then Vol kind of fell apart. Kind of an interesting day today. Yeah, the close of business yesterday on Friday was very telling in a short period of time, and I'm talking about 12 minutes. The S&P 500 dropped, 25 points to close below what was really a key level. And that was 40.80, which was the kind of high close from November when we had seen an old high. So we actually failed. And that would have been the first kind of higher high that we have seen in the market for a close, and we didn't get it. So, heading into Apple earnings, heading into the Fed, we're holding over the 200-day moving average. I want to see if we approach that. VIX seemed to have bottomed out on Friday, and Friday closed above the low from the previous week. There seems to be an underlying bid for vol and a little bit of penchant for selling. Today feels like one of those days where things could potentially melt. Now, how far they melt, how much we drop, I think that remains to be seen. But this is definitely one of those days where we've had so much exuberance that and I'm not going to call it irrational, but we've had some exuberance. We had some FOMO people really started getting when we broke the 200. And now the question is, do they come in and bag hold those people like they love to do?
I'll call it irrational exuberance. I'll call a spade, so I'm not afraid here. Greenspan for life, irrational exuberance. Let's go out now to a man he's got Greenspan tattooed on his arm, listeners. He is Uncle Mike TOSAW from St. Charles Wealth Management. Uncle Mike, sir, you're not getting Fed chairman tats. What is catching your eye out there in the markets?
I might have green tattooed to my arm, but I do not have Greenspan tattooed to my arm.
That's a handsome man's face to have on your arm. If ever you were to choose a man, a Greenspan tat would suit you well, sir.
There's so much wrong with that, I can't even go there. Anyway, with that being said, for what I'm seeing in the marketplace today, it is very much what's going to be happening this week with the Fed. I think it's the Fed. I mean, Apple earnings do typically move the market a lot, but I'm very focused on the Fed because, Apple earnings come out today after the close. And with that...
No. They're next month, and they're in a special weekend session. You didn't hear that? You didn't get that notice?
Oh, I thought they were today after the close.
No. Next month, special Saturday edition of earnings. One time only.
Got it. Okay. Anyway, so from there, I think that Hawks equals Bears, Doves equals Bulls right now for both stocks and bonds. That's the bottom line with it. If the Fed comes out and says we might be nearing the end, or just says anything dovish, or has any type of dovish message at all with where they put the rates, whatever the case may be, then I think we're going to have a nice rally from it. If it is anything hawkish to where, or even status quo, then I could see us going down in this marketplace. I've taken some deltas off. I mean, I'm still long in my aggressive strategy. I still am positive deltas, but I have taken a good amount off. I don't have any covered calls right now in bonds, and I'm just going to kind of see where the chips fall later this week with everything. So on that, I'm seeing for sure the potential to have some decent movement within this week. A couple other things with which I'm seeing right now in the marketplace. We have in our commodity world, oil is down a little bit today. We're back below the 80 level. And the question becomes, is oil stalled out? Can oil come down a little bit now? And I really do believe it's going to be going down to the 60s before I could see it going north of 100 from here. Natural gas continues to go down. It's down just under 5% on the day. So there's definitely a little bit of a pullback in the energy realm. Bonds are relatively flat today. They are down slightly, but I think ultimately that's bonds waiting for the Fed to see what they have to say. And of course, Bitcoin. Well, that doesn't even matter. We don't even bother with Bitcoin. So on this, I think just what it all boils down to is we're waiting to see what the Fed does. There's a lot of reasons to believe on the year there can be a bullish market, and I still do believe that regardless of what the Fed says on Wednesday. But for the time being, it's all about the Fed.
It is indeed all about the Fed. Really quickly, I unearthed one other trivia question I forgot to ask you guys, which is a fun one. Really quickly, bonus question. Who was the first ever person to enter a Royal Rumble match? The first person, number one entrant back in January of 1988. Hacksaw won it. Who was the first person in?
Buzz.
Go ahead.
Hacksaw.
No, he won it, but he was not the first one. Go ahead, Uncle Mike.
I'll say Hillbilly Jim.
Also a good guess. Nope, it was the Hitman. Brett the Hitman, the first man.
That was my first guess. I didn't say it.
The first man to officially step foot into the Royal Rumble for all time. There you go. Once again, trying to give these guys more swings of the bat, listeners. No joy to be found. Let's see if we can find some joy in the markets out there instead. And the answer is kinda. It really depends where you look. If you're looking for some joy in the vol products, in particular VIX today, you're not getting it, listeners. Not a heck of a lot of activity out there really at all. 187,000 contracts on the tape. The ADV ticked up a little bit since the vol views on Friday, up to 529,000. It's like the most active contract out there today. 15, almost 16,000 of the Feb 20 puts. Makes sense. We're kind of hanging out at 20 right now, but still intriguing stuff out there. So no size, upside, 1x5s, anything like that. Really down. There are about almost 5,000 of the April pars have traded today and about 5,000 of the March pars. So maybe someone doing the infamous April-March par roll, but not a lot going up out there regardless today, listeners. VIX doesn't like a day when vol is green. They like a nice vol red day, apparently, these days. SPY, 5.41 million contracts. The ADV, about 8.5 million. The S, 1.5 million. The ADV, 2.6 million. Okay, if you ask nicely, listeners, we can do it in the S as well. Let's see how many of our friends out there in the top 20 today are not expiring today. And the answer is none. None yet again. Let's go out to the top 40. I found 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. A robust 5 in the top 40 are not expiring today. And of that illustrious 5, 3 of them are expiring tomorrow. So you're not talking long-term pay. It's like the longest-term thing I could see out here are some Feb 3,900 puts. That's the craziest thing I see in the entire top 40 here of SPX. So, man, what a sea change in that product. How could it not be impacting VIX? Of course it is. ADV, 2.6 million out there. Small caps kind of languishing a little bit today as well. They're decent paper. They're more than halfway to their ADV, but not the rock'em sock'em numbers we've seen some other days. 424,000 contracts on the tape for small caps. The ADV, 759. The Qs looking pretty robust, 2.01 million on the tape, but you expect that from the Qs. That's kind of a given. The ADV is about 2.75 million out there. All right, let's get off to the most active listeners. Let's see what's lighting up our tape out there today. Is it a decent day for the single names? We are in earnings season after all, so we could respect some decent single name paper. And the answer is pretty much yes. Costs us 227,000 contracts to break into the top 10 today. That gets us to one of the Rock Lobster's former favorite names. I'm not sure if he's really that down on his name anymore. This is Microsoft, 227,000 contracts on the tape. Off nearly $5 today, 4.75. They're coming for it. After really rallying this name a lot over the last couple of weeks, it hit its 52-week low not too long ago, listeners, 213 and about a half. So 243 and about a half, that's still fairly north of that low. So it's got a long way to go back if it wants to retest those lows. But they're coming for it today, off nearly $5 out there today. Number 9, Carvana. You know them, the infamous car vending machines, listeners. They're bucking the trend. They're up nearly $2 today, up 25.25%. I'm guessing they had some good news, even though the headline out of the Times this morning is falling used car demand puts pressure on Carvana. I guess pressure to the tune of 27% to the upside. So some good news out there for Carvana out there today. Good for 274,000 contracts on the tape. We were talking about this one on Oddities last week, listener. This is Lucid Motors, Lucid Group now, whatever they call themselves out there. Trading about $12 right now. A good off about 78 cents or 6%. This one's kind of been all over the board out there over the last week. Kind of rocking and rolling, shooting up from about $8 to $9 all the way up to nearly 15 on Friday before coming back down out there. So yeah, just a lot of living out there. 291,000 contracts on the tape for good old Lucid. Let's look really quickly and see what is the hot trade out there in Lucid today. It's the Feb expiring this week, the 3rd. 13 calls. We're at a 1208. They have traded 32,400 times, listeners. So a lot of action in those bad boys. A lot of paper in Lucid in general. It's an interesting mix of names out there today, listeners. Number 7, back to the reigning king of the memes, AMC, $5 even right now. Off $0.50 or a little over 9% out there. Still above its 52-week low. It set not too long ago, about 3.75. So decent levels out there for AMC. 313,000 contracts. Also decent paper out there for AMC. Man, it's just a meme palooza out here today. Because right behind it, listeners, number 6. Is it going the way of the dodo? Is it not? We don't know. It's Bed Bath & Beyond. Trading $2.90, up 30 cents or about 13% today. Whipping out a rocking 327,000 contracts out here for Bed Bath & Beyond. Let's look really quickly. I'm going to guess it's the 3s that are lighting it up, but you never know out here. Yes, it's the 3s expiring this week. 30,000 of them have gone up in Bed Bath & Beyond today, followed by 25,000 of the 3 half calls also expiring this week, and then 22,000 of the 1 half puts expiring this week. So all very near dated paper. Makes a ton of sense. This thing can whip around 100% in a day easily. So we'll see what's lurking out here. Man, you got AMC and Bed Bath & Beyond and Carvana all hanging out in the bottom half of our top 5 today. What an intriguing day we've got out here, listeners. Number 5, going to the chip zone, but not the name we usually expect. Where's our friend AMD? They are nowhere to be found. Spoiler alert. In the top 10 out here today, listeners. Number 5, NVIDIA. 195, pretty much even, off about $8.50 today. Good for 362,000. So we started off pretty high at 227. That's a decent baseline for the top 10. But here we are at number 5, and we're not even really north of 400K yet. So it's kind of a weird day. It's a dense day, but we don't have a lot of outliers up to the top of the list here. Number 4. Yes, I said number 4, listeners. This one just slowly getting kicked down the chart here. This used to be the reigning king of all things options. You pick a day that ends with Y in the single name category. Nobody was touching Apple. And these days, number 4, a paltry, a mere 405,000 contracts. That's all Apple's got on the tape. And you know why? Because it's red today, listeners, off $2.50. I've said it before. The market just doesn't know what to do with its hands when Apple is red. People just freak out. And apparently, don't freak out to the tune of much options paper. They just kind of sit there and watch it go down. Again, we're still pretty far north, almost 20 handles north of the 52-week low it set not too long ago of a little bit north of 124 out there. I should say a little bit shy of 144 right now. So still got a ways to go if you want to retest those lows, but Apple red today. Number 3, it's the Amazonians. 528,000 contracts. Amazon 101.25, off about $1 or about 1% out there today. And the 52-week low of about 81.5, so they're almost $20 north of that still right now. Number 2, this is what contributed to pushing Apple so far down our list today. This is SOFI. You don't see them on our list too often, but they are lighting it up out there today. They gave an upbeat earnings forecast today. They're up 13% as a result, trading about 6 3/4 right now. Good for 668,000 contracts out there in SOFI. Let's see what SOFI is kicking around, what the kids are slinging out there in SOFI today. The big dog listeners, 123,000 of the Feb 7s expiring this week. Man, that is a lot of very near-dated paper. All this has the whiff of 2021 about it again, listeners. Doesn't all these names, the types of trades we're seeing going up? In fact, that's what we jokingly entitled our options oddities last week. Is it back to 2021? Some of this paper we're seeing. If you looked at this top 10, if I just looked at it with no other data around it and had to guess when it was, I would say it's probably sometime middle of 2021 with half these names we're seeing out here right now. You know what number 1 is, listeners? I don't need to tell you, but you know what? It's my job, so I'll tell you anyway. It's Tesla. 2.16 million contracts. They're coming for Tesla today off $6.50 or about 3.7%. Obviously, it's still, $70-odd north of the 52-week low it set just a couple of weeks ago. So this thing has been just rocking and rolling over the last couple of weeks. It was the end of times. Tesla was going out of business. They're cutting prices. The EV business is done. And now here they are, 70 handles north of it, listeners. Let's see what's going on out there on the earnings front. And spoiler alert, there's a lot. Today, as I mentioned already, SOFI today, Whirlpool and Philips also popping off today. So if you like your various appliances, you got something for you today. Tomorrow, Exxon, UPS, Pfizer, Caterpillar, Mickey D's, Spotify, AMD, which makes it even weirder. They're not in our top 10 today, AMD. Snap, EA, and Match Group. Wednesday, Waste Management, Peloton, and the artist formerly known as Facebook. Thursday, we got Merck, Eli Lilly, Honeywell, Hershey, Amazon, Sony, some company called Apple, never heard of them, as well as Alphabet and Ford. Ford announcing they're cutting their EV prices to kind of match Tesla now, so a bit of a price cut war out there in the EV front, which is interesting. Starbucks and everyone's favorite, Uncle Mike's favorite, WWE. Friday, some company called SIBO, never heard of them. Let's go around the horn and see what we've got here really quickly. Remember, you can check out all these reports for yourselves. TheOptionsInsider.com. Click on the Options News and Articles tab. Fresh, hot off the presses from our friends over there at Oratz, right before showtime, listeners. Let's see what we got here. Let's go to Intel. We had them last week. Let's see what else we've got coming up out here today. We have Mickey D's tomorrow, $272.50. They're pricing in $8.20. In the past, they moved $4.81. So, man, that's a heck of a lot of Big Mac juice. Interesting. Pfizer, 31st before the bell as well. 43 3/4 is where they were trading. They're pricing in $2. In the past, they've moved to $1.12. So, heck of a lot of extra juice in Pfizer as well. Spotify, same day before the bell, 102.25. They were pricing in $10.50. In the past, they've moved $9.40. So, a little over $1 worth of extra juice out there. UPS, 182 even, also tomorrow before the bell. They're pricing in $10.32. In the past, they moved $12.76. So UPS slashing a lot of juice out there. Have we seen the end of some of the logistical quagmire that's been dogging us for the last couple of years? Looks like they're pricing in less. AMD, tomorrow after the bell, 75.5 is where they were trading. They're pricing in $5.71. In the past, listeners, they've moved $3.64. So over $2 worth of extra juice out there in AMD. Intriguing. But then again, given the action we've seen out there in that sector of late, kind of hard to take issue with it. Tomorrow after the bell, we got EA. Haven't looked in on the gaming sector in a while. Electronic Arts, about 129 is where they were trading. They were pricing in $6.25, listeners. In the past, they've moved $4.41. That is a fair amount of extra juice for EA as well. Wow. Tomorrow, also Match Group, 31st after the bell. 53.66 is where they were trading. They're pricing in $4.76. In the past, they moved $3.89. So a wee bit of extra juice out there. More vol in the love space? I guess we'll find out. And Snap, always a bit of a bellwether in the social media kind of economy out there for what's going on. Also, they're a camera company at the end of the day, so they have all kinds of things going on with Snap earnings. Tomorrow after the bell, almost $11 is where they were trading. They were pricing in about $2 even. In the past, they moved $2.55, so far less juice in Snap. That's surprising. Let's go out to a couple more here, listeners. Peloton, they are the first before the bell. This one's kind of been a dumpster fire for a while here, listeners, and they started to have some love again with that new CEO. People thought they were going to get taken over, acquired, and then the new CEO said, we're not doing that, killed the stock. Then they had that deal they announced with Amazon. It seemed like that might have given them a new lease on life. They got a nice little pop off that, and they kind of rallied off that for a while. They got up to nearly $13 again in December. Then they came for it again by the end of the year. They were back down to $7.88. So this one's had a wild ride. Then the last couple of months, actually, last month, it's had a nice pop again. It's back up about $4.50, nearly 58% in the past month. So a nice run for Peloton over the past month. Let's see what they're up to. They're pricing in $2.13. In the past, they've moved to $1.28. They're trading $12.65 when we ran this report. So, wow. Intriguing stuff out there for good old Peloton. Let's flip the script entirely. Let's go out to the artist formerly known as Facebook. They were a dumpster fire for a while as well. They, at least stock-wise, seem to have righted the ship, even though you can argue there's still a lot of headwinds ahead of them here. I guess folks like a good layoff because they have rallied quite a bit. Meta, when we ran these numbers, 151.75. They're pricing in actually less juice. That is surprising to me. $13.82. In the past, they've moved $14.88. All the stuff going on with Meta, and there's less juice being priced into their straddle right now. Interesting. I may have to take another look at Meta here, listeners. We have so many we can get to. Let's just go to Apple. Name maybe one of you may have heard of. Second after the bell, 146 is where they were trading when we ran these numbers. They're pricing in $6.60. In the past, they've moved $5.78. So a wee bit of extra juice, not a ton, but enough to be noticeable out there in Apple. And again, given how much movement we've seen out there in the last month and change, hard to argue against more vol out there. Let's do Amazon really quickly as well because they're the same day. 102.25 is where they were trading. They were pricing in almost $8, and in the past they've moved $6.88. So they're pricing in over $1 worth of extra juice out there as well. So more juice, kind of the order of the day for Apple and Amazon. And again, kind of hard to argue given everything we've seen out there. How's the season stacking up right now? Well, with 124 names reporting, it is at, weirdly enough, 124%. That's a pretty robust number. I don't expect that to hold very long. Our average right now is about 92% since we've been crunching these numbers, which is a while now. So intriguing stuff out there, but we'll see as the week goes on how this is stacking up. No new earnings trades being entered or exited today, but we are tracking 45 long straddles and 21 long calendars for your trading pleasure out there. You want to check out all that data for yourselves because we like you folks completely for free. TheOptionsInsider.com is the place to go as we got to get on out of here into our next segment. It is time for the Odd Block.
It's time to break down the most interesting, unusual, and downright questionable options activity that's been identified by TheOptionsInsider.com. It's time for the Odd Block.
All right, listeners, let's do it. Let's get weird. Let's get wild. Mr. Meatball, stop me if you've heard of this first name we're going to talk about today. Used to be back in the day when we were on the SIBO and things were trading fast and furious out there. This was the go-to tech name everybody was all fired up about. They were dominating the mobile space. Everybody had to have a BlackBerry in their pocket. Do you remember those heady days, Mr. Meatball?
Oh, yeah, but it wasn't called BlackBerry at the time. It was called...
Nope, it was RIM.
RIM, yeah, Research in Motion.
Research in Motion, yes. They have since spun off the BlackBerry brand, I think multiple times at this point. I don't even know what it is they do anymore. Now they're just a software company specializing in cybersecurity. So, yeah, they're just licensing the name. I don't think they even make any handsets anymore. It's a shame. Storied brand. They keep trying to revitalize it with less and less success every time. Ticker symbol BB right now, listeners. Trading about 4.25. off about 13 cents or nearly 3% today. On the year, pretty rough year for BlackBerry. They lost pretty much 50%. A year ago, they were 8.25. Now they're 4.25. So you can do the math. They actually have rebounded a little bit over the last month or so. They got down to their low for the year, looks like on December 28th. So pretty much almost exactly a month ago. Since then, they've rallied about 30%. So a decent month here for BlackBerry, even if it was a terrible year. The low was 317 back on December 29th. So they have rallied from there. And Mr. Rock Lobster, it seems like, again, all this has the whiff of 2021, and maybe in this case, maybe 1998 paper. I don't know. But we got some call love going up out here in BlackBerry today, Mr. Rock Lobster, Mr. Meatball, to the tune of the March 5s. I said we're trading 4.25 right now, listeners. So about 75 cent out of the money calls. Someone's came in and scooped 15,783 of these bad boys. They paid 21 cents, so they lifted the offer. That's interesting. They were able to get that many done at that price. Usually, maybe they have to have a couple of prices for there, but they got them done at 21 cents. That's about a 78 vol, so that's not nothing. And the stock was pretty much right here, about 420 when these went up. Let's see. When are earnings? No, there's no earnings in this cycle, which is interesting. Earnings are in March, but they're on March 30th. So it's going to fall after expiration. So for their 21 cents, they don't get an earnings swing for the fences, which is kind of interesting. That's usually why you like to do these kind of trades. You want to maybe try to capture a bit of an earnings pop. Then again, 21 cents would be kind of low for if you got an earnings announcement baked in there as well. Still, I don't know, intriguing paper. Mr. Meatball, what say you? Someone thinks perhaps the glory days of BlackBerry have returned. I should mention, listen, like I said, a year ago, it was $8.35. So it can be north of the 5 handle again. Just hasn't done it in a while. What do you say, Mr. Meatball? Are we back? Is BlackBerry back, sir?
You know, what's interesting is this was done as a bunch of sweeps, not as like an individual block trade. So they went to the market and just lifted every market maker offer they could to acquire this trade, which tells me that the other side did not want it, that, you know, some upstairs institutional guy didn't want to sell it. That's a lot of paper. They're already up some. You got to wonder whether there's some sort of action going on here in BlackBerry. Maybe not earnings, maybe a merger. Who knows?
Definitely is intriguing. There is a reason why it kicked off our, not just because it's BlackBerry, even though it is fun listeners. And you're right, the execution is intriguing. Usually this kind of order this size will be shopped around. Someone will take the other side of it. But you're right, nobody seemed to want it. So nobody wanted to dump a bunch of 5 calls in March in BlackBerry, listeners. Perhaps that is telling in and of itself. Intriguing stuff. We'll keep an eye on these. You like these? You like March 5s for 21 cents, listeners? Would you be piggybacking on these boys? Would you say sold to you? I'm curious. Hit us up. Let us know. We just talked about this next name here, listeners, when we're doing our earnings rundown. This is UPS, ticker symbol appropriately enough, UPS. Trading right now a little bit shy of 180, about 179 and about a third. Today off about 2 3/4 or 1.5%. On the year, bit of a different story. It was trading 233 3/4 a year ago. That was pretty much the high for the year. And they kind of sold off a couple of times. They sold off first in May, got down to 167 and change. And then they bounced it. By August 18th, they were trading 208 and about a half again. And then that was all she wrote for UPS for the year. It sold off again down to the low for the year of about 154 and change in October. Then they tried to rally it again. They only got up to about 190. That was on December 1st. And they've kind of been drifting lower ever since, back to where we are right now, back down to 179. But net on the year, they're off about 23 handles, a little over 11% on the year. Of course, if you take it from the high, which was just a day or two after, by the 2nd or 3rd of February, they hit their high for the year. So you take it from the high, they're off even more. But either way, not a great year for UPS here. And again, it looks like someone, Mr. Meatball, is betting on a little bit of a flipping of the script. Someone coming in this morning and scooping 14,246. Again, I love all the sizes here. These are the March 195, so not quite 20 handles out of the money. Talking about 15 3/4 handle out of the money calls here. These are up for $1.87. That sounds weird. It's because they had to go up through the offer to get them done, listeners. They were offered at $1.85 to get all 14,000 and change done. They had to pay all the way up to $1.87, at least for the final kind there. The stock was a little bit lower, 178.98 when these went up. So they have a little bit of stock working in their favor, not much. About a nickel. And this is immediately pre-earnings because they have earnings tomorrow. So Mr. Meatball, all kinds of interesting in this one. They're buying a bunch of calls immediately before the earnings. So clearly they want the earnings play here. But they're not buying Febs or anything else near dated. They're buying the March calls. And they're paying a fair amount for them, $187. What say you, sir? Someone liking the upside here in UPS?
Yeah, the reason why you go out and get March instead of Feb is, one, you get a lot cheaper implied volatility, right? You're paying 30 instead of 31 instead of 41. Two, maybe you think that, one, those are nicely out of the money. So if UPS does get a nice move, you're going to want a little more time value in those options so they don't completely collapse. So the fact that these are that far out of the money makes a little more sense to use March instead of Feb, but highly suspect paper regardless, with earnings coming up tomorrow. You got to wonder whether UPS is going to report something nice. Or on the other hand, maybe you buy the March because you're shorting this thing. I don't know.
A little bit more time for it to run to the downside there. Intriguing stuff. We'll find out the answer tomorrow, listeners, as to this paper in particular, whether it was well-timed or not here. Intriguing stuff. Before we get out of the odd block, listeners, let's get out one more name here. This is a newcomer to the odd block. This is Pool Corporation. Ticker symbol POOL, P-O-O-L. This is a distributor of swimming pool supplies, equipment, and related leisure products. So there you go. Their name is exactly what they do. No tomfoolery here. Let's see. Trading right now, $377.81. So it's a fairly robust Pool Corp here, even though they are looking a little bit lighter on the year. A year ago, they were trading $476. And they got to their high for the year, looks like about a month and change later in March. They hit 488 3/4. And that was pretty much all she wrote for Pool Corp as well. They sold off. The first time they got down to $332 in June. They tried to rally it in August, got up to about $386, actually $392 in August. Then they sold it off again. By October 20th, it hit pretty much as low for the year of around $278. Then they've been trying to rally it ever since. And, by the end of the year, it was 305 coming into the end of December. And then since then, over the last month, had a nice run as well, up 75 handles, almost exactly 25%. Wow, that's quite the run here for Pool Corp. Again, so now trading 377s. Another name that over the last month, a very different tale than over the past year. This time, Mr. Meatball, it seems like somebody is not buying what Pool Corp is selling. They are not loading up to the upside like they were in UPS or in BlackBerry. They are saying, you know what? This run up may be a little bit crazy, which is also maybe why they're buying puts exactly where the run up started. They were right around $300 at the end of the year, listeners, and now they've rallied to 377. Someone coming in this morning and scooping 7,000 of the April 300 puts. Now, this market was horrific. It was $270 at $6. It's just terrible. And these people paid $6 for these puts. They had to lift the offer to get these things done. I mean, it is Pool Corp, not a high liquid name, so you probably have to lift the offer. But it is painful to see someone lifting the offer on an over $3 wide market on these puts. Again, they paid $6 7,000 times. That's almost a 50 vol, listeners. The stock was a little over $1 lower. It's about $1.30 lower. So the stock has not been their friend today either. They are getting earnings, obviously, between now and April. The next announcement is on February 16th. So like our other friend, they're getting a little bit of extra time here beyond the earnings. But Mr. Meatball, all kinds of weird about this one. The strike is dubious. The month is kind of interesting. The fact that they had to pay $6 to get these done. All sorts of weird about this one, sir. What say you about these meaty Pool Corp puts, sir.
Yeah. April in the money, April out of the money puts, like way out of the money puts, paying $6. That is pretty aggressive. I'm looking. They paid $6 for. I mean, that's a just terrible fill.
Yeah, that's horrible. They should fire their broker.
Oh my gosh. And because I'm looking, and the March, the April 380s are $27, and those are in the money. I'm looking at some March 360 puts that I want for $13. I mean, this just I would sold. I would have. Why didn't I get to take part in that sale?
I think a lot of people like me on the other side of that one. I don't think when they quoted 270 at $6, they expected anyone to take their $6 offer seriously, but they did, and they bought it 7,000 times. Yeah, that's if you're listening, customer.
That is a fire your broker. Yeah, my gosh!
If you're listening, customer, you need better hand on the steering wheel there for your execution. That's just painful. Short of an apocalypse in Pool Corp, I don't see any way that you make money with these puts. That's a painful one. Our condolences to you, but hey, maybe you're a genius. Maybe Pool Corp on the 16th with their earnings, they fall out of bed. Even still, I mean, Mark just talked about some other options you could have bought that are probably more effective, that are not much more expensive than this. Just bad business all around. You know what? Let's wash that taste out of our mouths. He always brings something fun, something cheerful. Dare I say it, delightful. Let's find out what it is. It is time for the strategy block.
It's time to dispense options, wit, wisdom, and education. It's time for the strategy block.
All right, everybody. It is time to unleash the beast that is Uncle Mike. Uncle Mike, what do you have in store for us today that is indeed delightful, sir?
I want to talk about risk reversals and a synthetic risk reversal.
Ooh, delightful.
All right. So let's say that you are liking a certain stock, and we'll go with our old favorite XYZ stock, and we'll put XYZ stock at $40 per share. And you think it has a lot of upside, actually, but you think it might have a little bit of downside, and you're just kind of in the middle on it. And you're okay maybe taking a small loss on it, but you want to have a little bit of cushion on it. Well, I'd like to introduce you to the risk reversal. What the risk reversal can do for you if you think the stock has a chance of going from 40 to 60, and you think it might just have a little bit of volatility, but it'll take a little bit to take off. You just can't quite handle that volatility. The risk reversal might be a solution for you. The way with which it works is that if you have a stock that's at 40, you could sell the 35 put. The money with which you take in from the 35 put, you could use to buy the 45 call. A lot of times you can do this for even money. If it's as even of an amount out of the money for both the call side and the put side. Now, if it's not, which it likely has been most recently due to higher interest rates, we'll talk about that in a second. But for right now, let's stay in easy land, so to speak. We sold the put for the 35 strike. That means that our risk in the stock is not from 40 to 0. It's from 35 to 0. So you're protected all the way down to 35. You're not obligated to buy the stock until it gets to 35. Now, of course, the disadvantage of that is that the stock could increase a little bit and you would not participate on it. You don't participate on any upside until 45. Now, after 45, you can keep participating in that upside as long as you want, but understand that you will not get any of the upside until it gets to 45. So the question often comes up with a risk reversal. What do I do if certain things happen? Well, first off, let's say the stock goes down significantly to 32 or 31. This should be a stock you're fine owning anyway at that level. And if it does go to that level, then you got to own the stock at 35 instead of owning it at 40. That's partly a good thing. The put will get assigned, you'll own the stock, and the 45 call will expire worthless. If the stock expires between 35 and 45, both options will expire worthless. It'll be as if nothing happened. Now, of course, if the stock is between 35 and 40, you dodged a loss. If it's between 40 and 45, you missed a slight gain. That's something that you have to deal with when you are thinking about doing this trade. And of course, if the stock goes above 45, you'll participate on all of the upside as if you simply owned the stock. That's the exciting thing about it. Now, the other exciting part about this is that as the stock goes higher to 45, 50, maybe 55, at that stage, you could probably buy back the 35 put for a few pennies. And then essentially you have almost free upside on the stock from 45 on up. That's where this strategy can get exciting. Now, Mike, I've looked into this and I'm not able to find these costless risk reversals with which you speak. Well, we talked about this on the show on the strategy block a little bit. I forget if it was last week or 2 weeks ago, to where you can set up a synthetic. Right now, because interest rates actually exist again and ROE is a factor again, it's no longer the redheaded stepchild of option Greeks. It's actually pretty important. What you can do is you can likely get a better rate of return by buying the stock and selling the 35 call. That's a synthetic to selling the 35 put. And if you're not familiar with synthetics, check out my YouTube channel. Just type in St. Charles Wealth Management. I have a thing on synthetics. You can learn a little bit more about that. And there's other places to find it as well. So on there, the rate of return would likely be greater these days on a in-the-money covered call than selling an out-of-the-money put. Reason being, it's because of interest rates. So if you're not quite getting what you want, you may want to consider looking at doing the 35 covered call and using the premium you get to buy the 45 call. Now understand, you only want to be using extrinsic value premium, so limit the amount of premium you use of buying the call to whatever you took in an extrinsic, or I should say time value. So that's something with which to consider in a market like this when you may want to have exposure, but you're just a little bit concerned about it. And that is the uplifting, upbeat strategy block for today, last one of January.
Absolutely delightful, sir, as we keep on rolling and we go around the block.
It's time to tell you what we'll be watching on our trading screens until the next episode. It's time for Around the Block.
All right, everybody, welcome to Around the Block. It is kind of dominated by one thing this week. That Around the Block's kind of a cheat because during Fed week, there's really only one thing everyone's paying attention to. So really quickly, let me pay off here. We got about 22 hours left here on our question of the week, which kind of we've been doing a midweek more, kind of mixing things up a little bit here. But we asked you towards the end of last week. This was inspired by all the debate I was hearing down at the STA Chicago conference last week. The question is, the zero DTE trend all the rage and the subject of much debate at STA Chicago last week? Our listeners are clearly trading these products in large numbers, but is this zero DTE explosion good for the options and volatility markets in the long run? We gave you 4 choices. Yes, it's good because it gives retail cheap access to SPX. Yes, it's good because it's just enticing more traders. At the end of the day, more volume is a good thing. Or no, this is just gambling. Or no, they are gamma bombs. Mr. Meatball, sir, what do you think is winning our poll right now, sir?
I think they're saying it's good for retail traders. I will say, I'm going to say it's both good for retail traders and a gamma bomb. It is an incredible gamma bomb. And it's really changed in ways that I think we're just starting to understand how the market works. We used to talk about the fact that like futures were the dog and the S&P options were the tail. I'm wondering whether some of that is flipped with the amount of notional volume that's trading place in the S&Ps now, in S&P daily options every single day. It's just absolutely incredible. I was doing the math on Friday on just a few strikes, bullish and bearish. On just a few bullish strikes, there was 370,000 contracts and it was $151 billion in notional value that had gone up, expiring that day. And it was not everything that traded that day. I was just literally looking at, I think, the 40-70 calls through the 4100s. So there is, there's been a fundamental shift in the market.
Like that, huh? Gamma bombs. I should TM that. I should put a t-shirt on that. Gamma bombs. I trade gamma bombs. But you're right. Mr. Uncle Mike, same question for you. What do you think our audience is voting for here, sir?
I think it's, as much as I love the word gamma bomb, I think that they're liking them just because it's going to be giving more retail access to the market. And then my opinion of them, I like them. Having the ability to do things is, in my opinion, never a bad thing. And if people are using these and they end up getting gamma bombed, so to speak, well, let's just think of that as God's way of weeding out the stupid people, I guess. I don't know. So I like them.
Survival of the fittest in options trade. I like it. Well, our audience right now, listeners, actually leaning towards the negative. No, they are gamma bombs. Maybe it's just because gamma bomb is such a cool term. Gamma bomb TM. No, they are gamma bombs is winning right now with 35.3%, followed by number 2. No, this is just gambling, 29.4%. So I think a lot of the pros in our audience are speaking out on this one. I know a lot of the pros are a little bit more dubious about these. 26.5% saying yes, it gives cheap retail SPX access. Only 8.8% you saying yes, it's good because it's enticing more traders and more volume. So, wow, our poll already right now leaning decidedly negative out here. Talking about 65% of the respondents so far choosing they are not good things for the options market. That is interesting. Like I said, it's not done yet, listeners. You got about 22 hours left. So if you're listening on demand after the fact, get over there at options. We try to retweet it or pin it throughout the week so you can find it, so you can get in there, make your voice heard. It'd be interesting to see how this shakes up, if it's going to shake up this way at the end. Probably not, but make your voice heard at options is a place to go. That music means we got to get on out of here. But before we go, listeners, let's go around the horn. Let's go to the Uncle List of Mikes, Mr. Uncle Mike TOSAW, sir. If folks want to check out what you got cooking, or maybe they want to talk about Gamma Bombs TM with you, where should they go? What should they do?
If you want to check out what I'm doing, just put out another article today. Follow me on Twitter at Mike TOSAW, TOSAW. Just tweeted it out. And if you're looking for a financial advisor who will not get gamma bombed, but understands what a gamma bomb actually is, feel free to reach out to me. Go to my website, stcharleswealth.com.
Uncle Mike about gamma bombs and all sorts of other fun stuff. And if you want to talk about the notional value of said gamma bombs, Mr. Meatball, where should they go? What should they do?
Yeah, come to optionpit.com and check out what I'm writing about VIX and volatility every day. We're putting out really great content that will help you become a better trader. So join us.
Check them out, optionpit.com. A big goose egg for the two wrestling bros here today. We'll see if they can redeem themselves here next week on the trivia segment. If you need more listening in your lives, you're not done, listeners, well, then don't worry. If you're hanging out in the pro hangout there, we'll be back in a little bit with our old friend, Mr. Bill, to break down the world of all things crypto. Should be a fun one. Then back again with our usual rash of content throughout the week. No conferences in town this week, so that shouldn't gum up the works earlier in the week the way it did last week. And then back again on Thursday, post-Fed. We'll all know what the hell's going on the next episode of the Option Block. Stay safe out there, everybody.
You're listening to the Options Insider Radio Network, the home of the Options Podcast. For more quality options programs, visit theoptionsinsider.com or search for Options Insider Radio Network in your podcast provider of choice. Listeners can also access all of our programming through our mobile app available in the iTunes and Google Play stores. Select programs are also available via live stream at mixlr.com/options-insider. That's mixlr.com/options-insider. Don't forget to follow along with your favorite programs and submit your own questions for the hosts at twitter.com/options, stocktwits.com/options, facebook.com/theoptionsinsider, or via questions at theoptionsinsider.com.